Oh, I don't want. I don't want to hear you. All right. So I just had a really cool phone call. It's like I'm grinning ear to ear because of this phone call. Yeah. I run an escape room business, right? Why won't this go? All right. So um, about a year ago, we had a couple. We had a guy and a girl play with a bunch of family, and they had arranged it in advance that they would, at the very end of their Alice in Wonderland themed game, you get this cabinet opened, and there's a box in there, and you're looking for specific items and to finish the game, and so this girl opens the box, and she opens the lid, she goes, "What's this?" And she pulls it out, and it's an engagement ring. She turns around, and the guy's on his knees right there. And so it was really, really clever, really cute, the whole family was there. Everybody's got their phones out taking videos of the thing and all that stuff. It was great. It was fun. So that girl just called me like 5 minutes ago. And she says, it was like a year ago, do you remember we did? And I go, "Oh, yeah, I remember that." She goes, "Well, we'd like to do it again." I said, "You're getting married again?" She goes, "No, we're going to announce a pregnancy. I just found out like 30 minutes ago that I'm pregnant. And we want to get everybody together."
Her mom's going to be on it.
Probably. So she says, "We're going to get the whole family together and play the game again." So I imagine because they did it before, everybody's going to be like, "Oh, yeah, I know what's going on here." So that was a cool thing. I love it. All right, so for this last session in Daniel, I didn't want to take on any more of the book of Daniel because your brains are probably full. You know what I mean? So I thought we'd just kind of rehash a little bit of what do you remember from the last 4 days in the 7 chapters of Daniel that we covered. So let me see if I can get to sharing the screen again. All right, I'll have to go on Do Not Disturb again. Come on. All right, not that. This. All right, focus. Do Not Disturb. All right, and then I want to screen sharing. Come on. Screen sharing. Upstairs TV. All right, here we go. And play. Playing. All right, cool. So, wrap up. This could be the shortest class you have all year, because we may just kind of. Dane? Man, that surprises me, because Dane can go and go, So, I love Dane. I think I'm becoming a little like Dane. As I get older, I tend to tear up at things that I normally don't tear up at. Has he cried in here before, you guys? He's like, what is usually on stage at church when he's preaching? Okay, yeah. All right, so let's kind of go back over the overarching themes of Daniel and see what are the information you remember and what are the so whats you remember. All right, we're not going to go through every outline. We're just going to look at them one at a time. So Daniel chapter 1. What happened in Daniel chapter 1?
They ate the veggies instead of.
Yes. Well, why? Yes, they wanted to not defile themselves, to remain faithful to the God of Judah, of Abraham, Isaac, Judah, and they wanted to remain faithful and determined not to defile themselves. So how did they go about accomplishing that?
They asked if they could be fed differently, but then they were like, "Well, the king is."
You come right up. Yeah. Yeah. So the principal said, "I don't want to lose my head, so no, you can't do it."
And then Daniel came up with a plan, 10-day
10-day
diet.
diet of vegetables and water, which actually turned into a 3-year diet, right? And what was the result? They looked plumper. And they were smarter than everybody else. And on the final exams, when they spoke to the king, can you imagine the pressure? The king found him 10 times better than everybody else. Now that could be hyperbole, but you know what hyperbole is? Exaggeration to make a point, so, but that's good.
That was a lie.
A lie, hyperbole is a lie.
My brother does all the time, Oh, I didn't even know there was, 10 deer running across the road.
Right. Well, and then, so, yeah. All right. So, yeah, that hyperbole, but the point is God honored their commitment and gave them abilities they otherwise would not have had, right? So, what do you remember the so whats?
I have to get creative to.
Yep. And one of the so whats is you don't ever have to sin. You don't ever have to get into a place where you have got to crumble and go along. There's always a way out. You might have to get creative. But that's one of the, you don't ever have to sin. There's always a way out. You remember the story? I have to freeze your hiney off running across a frozen lake in the middle of winter in Minnesota. All right, another one is preserve your dual identity. Do you remember that one? We are citizens of this world, and we are in this world, in this culture, in this country, and yet we have a dual citizenship. Our citizenship is also in heaven. Do you have any dual citizenship friends, people who are citizens of one country and another? Are you? What? You too? Say what? England and?
Canada and America.
Oh, Canada and the U.S. What are you? You have a friend, or is it you? Wait, it's her. What's her name? Caitlin. What countries?
Russia and the United States.
Awesome.
But not the United States.
But not United States anymore. So I recently lost my social and my passport in a walk.
You're the one who lost your passport. Have you found it?
No.
Okay. Well, let's hope it shows up. Yeah.
Aren't technically all dual citizens, though?
That's what I'm saying. We are all dual citizens. Like we have dual citizens, like we had one of our game masters was both German and American, so he had dual citizenship. So preserve your dual identity by being in the world, but not of the world. That's a main theme throughout Daniel, being in, but not of. You can even be in and excel in the world and still not be of the world. And remember that God will work in you and through you. He can change your body if he wants to, like he did with Daniel and his 3 friends. And he'll work through you to honor him among the people that you encounter in the situations that you engage yourself into. Okay, cool. Daniel chapter 2 is interesting times. May you live in interesting times. What was the issue involved in Daniel chapter 2? This is in lieu of a final test, by the way. I'm not giving you a test. But this discussion is our final test, all right? So what do you remember about Daniel chapter 2, interesting times?
The statue, yeah.
Okay. It was the dream, yeah. The interesting times comes a little later. Yes. I mean, the fiery furnace comes later. The statue in the fiery furnace. Yeah, that was true. But in chapter 2, it's the dream. What was weird about that dream?
It talked about the different layers
Right.
of precious metals.
Yeah.
Down to clay.
Yep. Started gold, goes down to iron and clay mixed transitions. What was unusual about Nebuchadnezzar's demand of his wise men?
He wanted them to tell him what the dream was, but also the interpretation.
Yep. And what was their response?
It's impossible. It's never been asked about before.
Yes, you are unreasonable. No king, no potentate, nobody has ever required that of his wise guys. That's not in our books, in our libraries. Yes. And why would Nebuchadnezzar have made that unusual request?
To see if they were actually going to come through what they promised they would do.
Yes. To see if they actually could interface with the gods and tell something that they otherwise would not have known. So they played for time, and he got ticked at them and realized these guys have been pulling the wool over my eyes. I knew it. They're charlatans. And what was his decision? Kill them all.
Dismember them, burn their house.
Yes. Pull them apart, limb from limb, and destroy their homes.
I'm with you.
Yes. Typical Bronze Age potentate kind of behavior. But Daniel does something unusual. What does he say? What does what does he do? How does he respond?
Let me go see if I can figure something out.
Yeah, he goes to the king and says, "Hey, give me some time, maybe a day, and and he talk about having confidence, and I'll be able to tell you the dream and its interpretation." Like, he's 18 years old, and he's saying this to the ruling guy of the empire of the world at that time, and he goes in front of him as an 18-year-old, and with much tact and self-deprecation, he goes, "Give me some time." He actually went to him. And so he goes back to his dorm room, and what happens?
Prays, he sleeps, and it's revealed in vision.
He tells the situation to his 3 roommates.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. And the 4 of them probably spend a sleepless night. Well, not sleepless, because in a dream, Daniel gets the information they were asking for. And so the head of the guards shows up to take him to go get him killed, and he says, "Hey, I've got what the king needs. Let me go to the king." There's an interchange there that we didn't talk about. Arioch was the head of the guards that was the executioners. And he goes in front of Nebuchadnezzar and says, "Hey, I found the guy. It's me. Look at me. I'm the guy who found the person who can tell you what you need to know." Typical, prideful bravado on his part. He didn't find him. Daniel said, "Hey, I've got it." That kind of deal. But, oh well. And so Daniel goes in and tells the king his dream and tells him what it means. And what was the result of all that?
Everybody wasn't killed.
Nobody was killed. That's true.
And the king,
God is a true God.
That's right. The king goes, "Oh my goodness.
most high.
He's the most high God, and his dominion never ends. His kingdom will never end."
Where did he get that out of that?
Daniel. Because of the dream where the rock is grabbed off of a mountain that, is not formed by human hands. In other words, a block or something. I kind of think it's like the cornerstone that's rejected. Anyway, it goes, strikes the foot of the statue crumbles, and the rock turns into a giant mountain. So that's where he gets it. What was the so what of Daniel chapter 2? That event points us to Jesus, the rock that destroys the kingdoms and builds his own kingdom. Daniel was looking forward to the Messiah who would come and do away with earthly kingdoms and create his own kingdom that would overshadow all of them. And so what we need to do is realize that also that we live in interesting times. We have experiences that we don't plan on, and how we respond to them, if we respond with tact or with terror. Do we respond with a calmness or with, "Oh my goodness, what can I do to get myself out of this?" That kind of thing. Interesting times. Then we come to the fiery furnace. And who are the 3 main characters? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, or Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, or shake the bed, make the bed, and to bed we go, or my shack, your shack in a bungalow. But the reason starts with an L. Lexi asks, why do we call them those three names instead of the Hebrew names? Because the entire chapter uses those three names, because it's all a Babylonian experience. So what was the issue? And by the way, how tall was that statue? 90 feet. And how wide? 9 feet. So it was a 10-to-1 ratio there. And obviously it wasn't like a 90-foot tall like totem pole, one creature. It was a stand with a guy on top. Well, logically, let me put it that way. Logically. It would be very grotesque if it was an image of one person that tall and that narrow. What's that? That's a very thin dude. Yeah. Who was the statue likeness of? That's it. That's right. We don't know. It doesn't say. It could be Nebuchadnezzar himself. Could have been one of the gods. It could have been a combo. We don't know. But all we know is it was done by Nebuchadnezzar, and it was important because what was he trying to accomplish?
Oh, he was uniting the nations.
Yes, uniting the nations under his one rule. And he was trying to smoke out any traitors. Which, if there were traitors, they wouldn't have stayed standing. They would have gone along, But so when all the instruments played, what was everybody? Who all was there, by the way?
The province leaders?
Leaders, all of the government employees, everybody from trash collectors to tax collectors to lawmakers. But yeah, where was Daniel? He wasn't there. Or did he bow?
He was probably looking over because he was like second in command.
Yes, he was second in command, so he was probably back in Babylon. The plain of Dura is like 30 miles away. So he was probably back in Babylon mending the store, making sure everything kept running while he was gone, because the whole population didn't automatically just depopulate Babylon and go out into the plain. These things still had to run. They had to keep going. That's our best guess. The Bible doesn't say. Okay, it's just a guess. All right, so they get out there. The band plays. Everybody bows except Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And they get accused. Who accuses them? No, not the king.
The jealous
The jealous dudes, the certain Chaldeans, which are the local boys. And they go to the king and say, hey, king, didn't you tell everybody to bow? And he goes, yep. Otherwise they get tossed into the fire. Well, there are 3 exiles from Judah. Bronze Age anti-Semitism, who don't pay attention to you. They don't serve your gods, and they don't bow down to the statue. Again, a lie and 2 truths. Which was the lie?
that they don't care about it.
Yeah, they don't pay attention to you. They do pay attention to you. They were high-ranking officials, and they had to interface with the king on several occasions, I'm sure. So the king hauls them in and says, is it true? And he leaves out the lie. Is it true that you don't worship my gods and you don't bow down to the statue? I'll give you another chance. If you hear the band play, bow down, everything will be fine. But if not, it's crispy critter time. And they answered, we don't really need to defend ourselves. You know who we are. We're loyal to you, but we do want you to know that we don't serve your gods. And we will not bow down to that statue. And what was Nebuchadnezzar's response?
Fury.
He was filled with fury, especially when they said, if our God's willing, he can save us. And even if not, we're not going to bow down. Even if he's not willing, if somehow our dying in the flames serves his purpose, then that's what's going to happen. But we're not going to bow. So he got furious, and his face changed, and he ordered the furnace stoked up 7 times hotter, which is like as hot as he can get, and his best soldiers to tie up these guys in their turbans and their robes and such, and carry them up the side of the furnace and toss them in. What happened to those soldiers? They became human torches, which is, just the folly of anger, I guess, on the part of Nebuchadnezzar. And after the fire died down for a while, Nebuchadnezzar was shocked when what? And the boys were chilling in there. He asked for confirmation. Hey, did somebody else slip in there? How many did we toss in? 3. Why do I see 4? And the 4th one looks like a son of the gods, which there must have been some sort of qualitative difference on that 4th person to make him look different than the other 3. Because he looked like a son of the gods, which is, his ancient pagan beliefs would allow for that kind of thing. So he gave him a second chance, but they said no thanks. And so into the furnace they go, and once they got out, once the fire got low enough that he could get close enough and holler in there, he said, you guys come on out. They come out, everybody inspects them, they don't even smell like smoke. The only thing that is gone is the ropes, and even that didn't singe them. Their robes didn't have any burning. It's incredible. They didn't even smell like smoke. It was incredible how God is so in charge of the material world that he can make that happen. Kind of reminds me, in my mind, I just was remembering the first miracle that Jesus did that proved he was God and not just another guy. Do you know what miracle that was? Wine, water into wine. Because these big jugs were way over there. He told the guys, go fill it up with water. And then he tells them, go and serve some to the wine steward. What is the name we use for the sommelier? That's the word. And so he didn't have to go over there and touch it. He didn't have to get up from his seat at all. He's in charge of space. He was able to make that stuff change. He's in charge of the molecules. He changed the molecules of water into wine. He's in charge of time. What do you know about wine and time? Yes, it takes a while for grape juice to ferment, and wine generally has to be stored for a specific amount of time, and some wine even gets better the longer you leave it in a bottle. And so he's in charge of space, of matter, of time, all of that in one event. Same thing here. He's in charge of fire. He's in charge of heat. He's in charge of all of that. He can just undo it all, even though the guys were walking around in the flames. Imagine. I can't imagine that.
And it's not like they were in a bubble, like.
No, it wasn't like a force field around them.
The ropes were burned off.
Yeah. And they were, the scripture even says they were walking around in the flames, not around the flames, but they're in the flames, walking around. All right, so then they come out, and then everybody says, wow, that's a miracle. And what is Nebuchadnezzar's response?
Your God can deliver you.
Yes, it's a decree. Nobody say anything bad about the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, for that God can save. His dominion is everlasting, and he remembers the lesson of his dream from 10 years earlier. All right, so the so whats. What do you remember the so whats? What 2 friends do you have that will stand with you when times get tough? When your faith is challenged? Do you have 2 friends that you can go to that you know will have your back, that will be with you in the process? And we asked you to think about what gold statues do we tend to being pressured to bow down to? And how do you tend to want to look like you're bowing down, but not really? Maybe you cant off a few degrees, and maybe and you pray silently. That's Jeannie. And that we compromise. We try to look like we're fitting in, but not really. It's like that little story of the boy whose dad told him to sit down, and the boy said no. And Dad says, "You're going to sit down." "No, I'm not." And Dad goes over and sits him down. There, now you're sitting down. And the boy says, "I might be sitting down on the outside, but I'm standing up on the inside." A lot of Christians are like that. We might be bowing on the outside, but I'm not bowing in the inside. I'm standing up. Don't be like that boy, Don't be forced to bow. Okay. Chapter 4. The king goes nuts. What happened?
The king had a dream. Daniel interpreted the dream and warned him, saying,
That's right.
if you don't listen to this dream and repent to God, then you're going to go nuts.
That's right.
And I hope you don't, but you will.
I hope you don't. Yes, the dream described Nebuchadnezzar as a huge tree, and then a watcher. Who are the watchers? Was sent. A watcher came out of heaven and said, "Cut the tree down. Prune its branches, scatter its fruit, but bind the stump with a couple bands of metal so that it doesn't split, so that it can grow again. But it's going to take 7 years until he's restored." And how long did Nebuchadnezzar have to respond to the dream, to the warning? He had a whole year. 1 year later, what was he doing?
The same stuff.
The same stuff. He was like prideful. "Look at what I've done. Is this not the great city that I have made for my own glory? Isn't this amazing?" And while the words were coming out of his mouth, he lost his mind and lived like a cow for 7 years. It just seems so bizarre.
Sounds like it'd be a worse punishment if he didn't lose his mind and became like a cow.
Yeah, if you were aware that you were living like a cow without losing your mind, that would be worse. And I think that's what happened. So we noticed where the king's eyes were right before his fall. He was looking out, and basically he was really looking in. He had ingrown eyeballs. Yeah.
Well, I would don't you think that he was sane on the inside? It was just his outward expression of everything was insane, because he still came back and he had learned from it.
Yeah.
If he was completely insane and then came back, he wouldn't have changed at all, because he wouldn't know anything.
Well, and it says, if I remember right, but that's a good point. He was insane. He was for 7 years until it says, "I lifted my eyes up." He was in the field, and he lifts his eyes up and goes, "Oh man, I'm an idiot. I'm really nothing apart from what God has done." So I think that's probably what happened. That he was aware, "Oh my goodness, look at my fingernails, look at my hair. Oh Christ, what's happened to me here? I have been brought low." Because last I remember, I was standing on the balcony of this hanging gardens and thinking how great I was. And now look at me in the middle of a pasture, and I'm not that great. So then he gets restored, and God even blesses him further. His kingdom continues to expand, and he probably doesn't. I'm reading into Scripture, but I'll bet you he goes, "Okay, we're going to give the slaves a day off now. Instead of 7 days of labor, we're going to give them a day off. He's probably tried to repent and do what was right, is my guess, because God rewarded with further growth and prosperity. So we talked about ingrown eyeballs, where your eyes are on yourself all the time. How am I doing? What do they think of me? What causes you, that was one of the so whats, what causes you to have ingrown eyeballs? That's a kind of rhetorical question. That was one of the so whats. Do you know of any other so whats that we came up with? Have you encountered the time when you've been humiliated? If you haven't, you probably will. It's part of everybody's experience, how you respond to that. God provided humiliation, not person provided humiliation. Cool. Chapter 5. Oh man, we are blowing through this thing. Handwriting on the wall, just for Kate. Who was the main character in this story? Belshazzar. And how did he become king? See what? He was the grandson of Nebuchadnezzar, and he was like the third or fourth one after Nebuchadnezzar because all these guys took on and then they got assassinated and they got maneuvered out and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So finally, the grandson becomes co-regent because his dad, Nabonidus, was not a, he was out of Babylon. He didn't like being in the city. He liked being out doing the army thing. Right? What was the situation? See what? He was at a party. He actually threw a party.
Under siege.
Yes, that was.
His enemies.
Yes, Cyrus and the Persian Median army had swept in out of the north and blasted, leveled town after town. Finally got to Babylon, surrounded it. The Babylonians thought they were impregnable. They were safe. They had plenty of supplies stored up. They had a river running right through town. They could endure a siege. So let's have a party. Yeah. So let's have a party to impress everybody, to enlighten or enliven everybody's mood. Let's have a big party to show our confidence that we're in for this. We can make this happen. We can get through this. This will be no big deal. What was Belshazzar's fatal doing, though?
He profaned the holy cups and such
Yes.
from the temple that they had taken.
Yes. He decided, I know my grandfather was humiliated by God, but I'm not that scared of him. So he brings the treasures that were taken from the Jewish temple, and he uses them to drink wine from them and praise the gods of gold, silver, bronze, iron, wood, stone, yeah, all that kind of stuff. And then what happens? Kate, what happened? Fingers came out of the wall and started writing 4 words. What were the 4 words? Parson, yes. Many, tekel, parson, which was like, it's like a $5 bill, $1 bill, and a quarter, that kind of thing. There was denominations of money is what it was, but it meant numbered, measured, weighed, wanting, or divided. Weighed and found wanting, and then divided. So, once again, the king calls all his wise guys, and they can't decipher it, or maybe they don't want to decipher it. So, who shows up to fix the situation? Who shows up? His grandma shows up and says, "You little whippersnapper, if you were more like your grandfather, this would not have happened." There is a guy in the country, then in your own government, who knows how to do these things, and she names Daniel as Daniel. So they call for Daniel, and Belshazzar's attitude toward Daniel is really not very positive.
So I'm told that you can do.
Yeah, I've heard. Yeah, you can do these things. Are you the Daniel that my grandfather brought from Judah? Put him in his place. Yeah. So he says, if you can read it and interpret it, I'll give you a purple robe signifying royalty. You're not just a government employee anymore. You'll be a third of the triumvirate ruling royalty. You'll be called Your Majesty, and you can wear this gold chain I have around my neck because it represents the position that I have. Daniel says, you can keep your stuff for yourself. I'm not for sale, but I'll tell you what it says and what it means. And he gave Belshazzar the bad news. So Belshazzar follows through on his promise of presents.
And attack.
And then that night, How did the Medo-Persian army get in?
They diverted the Euphrates.
You diverted the Euphrates River, walked right under the walls, and took the city without a fight.
Seems like that would have been quite a project that should have been noticed.
If everybody's inside the city and they're diverting it 5 miles upstream, they wouldn't have seen. So, and it wouldn't take very long to divert it, however long the river flows, and they just walked in. So, what is the so what on this story in Daniel? The so what was, do not be overly impressed with earthly power and signs of authority and success. Our culture doesn't emulate kings, they emulate influencers and celebrities, sports figures, and musicians, and stuff like that. But we should be careful who we admire. Because they're like the gods of gold, silver, bronze, iron, stone, and wood. And we also talked about maybe it's not the power and authority that we're impressed by. Maybe it's experiences. Maybe it's the people who are the best, snowboarders, or we really want to have the experience of altered states via chemicals. Maybe we want to have the experience of the rush of jumping off the top of a mountain under a hang glider. Whatever it is, some people live for experiences, and that's what makes their life happen. But that too is like the gods of wood and stone and iron and silver and bronze and gold.
Are we gonna get through too much after this?
What's that?
Are we gonna get through too much after
We might. Lion's Den. Wrap up the Lion's Den for me. Yeah, tell me in 2 sentences what happened.
Daniel was Super Bowl, day one, got thrown in.
People tricked the king into creating a rule that they should make that everyone should gather around him. King Darius.
Pray only to him, yeah.
Pray to him. Then they were like, "Oh, you made a declare, or you put it in writing. You can't change it." Daniel's not doing it, and then he was like, "Oh, I'm an idiot." And then he was like, "Sorry, Daniel, but rules are rules." Puts him in the lion's den. Struggles overnight, comes back, sees that he's still alive, gets him out, throws the other guys in,
Yep,
and then changes the rule.
right. Then, he amends the rule. So what was the so what from Daniel and Lion's Den other than God's miraculous deliverance and presence in the middle of all those lions?
Keep calm and carry on.
Keep calm and carry on. That was the main takeaway. Keep calm and carry on. No matter what happens around you, stay calm and carry on. Daniel's personality was such that could have been his a defining statement for him. He was able to stay calm and carry on. And then this morning we talked about prepare for battle, because the battle's going on whether we realize it or not. We've got to get ourselves ready, and part of what you're doing here is preparing your mind for battle. There are angels and beings that we can't see that are engaged in a cosmic struggle, and yet God's power and holiness and glory is on our side. And the war has already been settled. The victory has already been won. It's just the mop-up operations now, So, so what on that one is, ultimate victory has been won by Christ. And we need to be completely prepared with our full armor of God so that having done all, we can stand. And the best thing we can do is pray and self-discipline, because that's what caused the whole event with the angel showing up and unzipping the air and giving Daniel a peek behind it. Okay? All right. Well, I have really, really enjoyed being with you guys. I know it's tough to have a brand new teacher every week, but I'm so appreciative of how you've embraced me and not made me feel outsider, you know? So it's very cool. So let me pray as we finish, all right? We are grateful for the example of guys like Daniel and his friends, and for the lessons that their lives can teach us, and inspire us to have the kind of character and the kind of mentality and the responses that they had. Thank you for these young friends of mine. I look forward to what you're going to do in their lives in the near future and for years to come. Bless them. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen. Thanks, you guys.